Good morning. Welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Members, friends, guests, and visitors, we are so glad you chose to spend your Sunday morning with us, and impressed that you braved the tad chilly weather to be here. My name is Jennifer Byriger, your worship facilitator this morning. With me are Alex Chilson, our music director extraordinaire, and Aaron Hurwitz, our talented AV technician. We are grateful for you both. Our guest speaker this morning is Reverend Denise Cawley, a UU minister. Reverend Denise lives in Milwaukee. She worked in a nonprofit management for more than 20 years, where her gifts of fundraising, media, and advocacy shone. Reverend Denise has been a pivotal player in diversity, inclusion, marriage equality, and voting rights over 2 decades. Welcome, and thank you for being here. A few important announcements. Hi, let me flip. A few important announcements before we begin our service. As board member, I'm making a last call for the United Membership Survey. There's only 15 surveys missing. That's impressive, but we need the 15. The survey's important data needed by the UUA. If you do not wish to answer the survey, please indicate this and pick the option that says, I wish not to answer, but please do that. All members are needed. You can find the form on the railing as you leave the sanctuary. Please fill it out and drop it off by Sam Silver's office in the silver box. Love in Action is next Sunday, and back by popular request is our coffee house service. Bring something to share, to do, to show, or to tell. This is your service, so let your light shine. If you have an idea for another Love in Action Sunday, there are Sunday forms you can find in the lobby and in the office box. Love in Action Sundays need your action ideas. April, May, and June are still needed. And if you need a tax letter for you know what, see Sarah. Dance of Universal Peace meets here at United today at 2 p.m. There will be no story for all ages today. As the last 10 minutes of our service this morning, we will be hearing from Jacqueline Foley. Jacqueline, wave your hand. Jacqueline is the new organizer for SOPHIA and will introduce herself and highlight SOPHIA's task force's efforts. The task forces are housing, immigration, and criminal justice reform. Racial equity is a standard committee of SOPHIA. Jacqueline will stay for coffee hour to answer questions and talk about how to engage with SOPHIA. David Boda from the Racial Equity Committee and perhaps Jim Bickle may be here from the Criminal Justice Task Force, again to join us at coffee hour. And last but not least, on behalf of the Social Justice Council, we'd like the January Share the Plate proceeds to go to SOPHIA. United has been a member of SOPHIA since 2017. SOPHIA's membership is primarily made up of faith-based religions groups. SOPHIA builds relationships with public policymakers and addresses local, Waukesha County, and statewide issues. And now, as we begin our service, recall that racial equity is an ongoing committee of SOPHIA. Tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, a federal holiday honoring Dr. King. Today we will hear from Reverend Denise about her hero and one of the most influential teachers and pastor of the civil rights movement, Reverend Howard Thurman. Thurman was known as the eminent Christian African American mystic and social gospel theologian, a preacher, and a prolific author. Thurman's practice of direct experience of nature, meditation, and silence created an experience of spirituality known as mysticism, observing life for divine truth. It was Thurman who regularly advised leaders of the civil rights movement, including Martin Luther King Jr., Paul Murray, Vernon Jordan, James Farmer, Whitney Young, Jesse Jackson, Malcolm X, and and Bayard Rustin. Thurman was very influential in advising and teaching Martin Luther King Jr. nonviolent resistance. An excerpt from one of King's writings, quote, "The alternative to violence is nonviolent resistance. This method was made famous in our generation by Gandhi, who used it to free India from the domination of the British Empire. Points can be made concerning nonviolence as a method in bringing about better racial conditions. First, this is not a method for cowards. It does resist. The nonviolent resistor is just as strongly opposed to the evil against which he protests as is the person who uses violence. A second point is that nonviolent resistance does not seek to defeat or humiliate the opponent, but to win his friendship and understanding. A third characteristic of this method is that the attack is directed against forces of evil rather than against persons who are caught in those forces. A fourth point that must be brought out concerning nonviolent resistance is that it avoids not only external physical violence, but also internal violence of spirit. At the center of nonviolence stands the principle of love." And now please join me as we say the words on the wall as we light our chalice. May this flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Here together and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community. Our first hymn is "There's More Love Somewhere." It's a traditional spiritual song written by Steve Biko, a South African anti-apartheid activist. The song is a plea for unity and peace and expresses hope for a better future. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 95, "There is More Love Somewhere." Each morning as part of our service, we have our joys, sorrows, and concerns, where you simply come up, state your name, state your sorrow, concern, or joy, place it in the water, and let the ripples from the water flow out to the community at large.
Well, it's not bad. Anywho, I hope I keep this organized. I'm Jeff, whoop-de-doo. Well, first, I want to recognize the passing of one of Wisconsin's favorite sons, Mr. Baseball, Bob Uecker. And even you Chicago people, or you Cubs fans, should be able to appreciate him. So on that note, I'd like to move on. I don't know if most of you folks know it, but one of you Chicago natives had a birthday this week, but he's not here, sorry. Chet Salenza. Okay, but I also want to recognize the fact that if it wasn't for Sally Salenza, Chet would not be able to get dressed in the morning. So I just want to recognize Bob, Chet, Sally.
So I'm Ellen. I forgot to mention a couple weeks ago, I have a joy. My nephew's wife, her name is Abby Armour. She is the director at McGuanago Library, and she was one of 10 on the national level named as who received the I Love My Library Award. So actually they're off to Arizona later this week for her to be honored and whatever. She's super dedicated. So if you ever go to the McGuanago Library, keep her in mind, or any library, quite frankly. So this is for Abby.
My name is Phyllis. I'm up here asking for prayers for our brother-in-law. His name is Mark. He's at West Allis Memorial. This is his 23rd day there. I was counting on my fingers this morning, and Richard was asking me why. I was counting how many days he's been in intensive care. 11. He was put on a ventilator, but they took that off on Thursday. And after they took that off, then he's been so depressed. And he has 4 children. Richard's sister, Laura, we need prayers for her too. And she said the kids are all very, very supportive of their dad and worried about him, but right now he's suffering a lot of anxiety, and he only wants Laura there. So prayers for Mark and Laura, Richard's sister and our brother-in-law.
I'm Patty. My friend in the hospital, Hal, that I spoke about last week, will probably be discharged on Monday. That sounds good. He's improving. That sounds good. My concern is about insurance and everything insurance is in this day and age. There are only so many days they believe you're ill enough to be in such and such a situation. They do not believe he needs aftercare. They believe he just goes home at the weight he is with the capacity he has.
Hi, I'm Michael. My daughter has a friend, a neighbor man who's 93, who she's been really good friends with for years and helps him take care of his cat and stuff. He went for a drive on Wednesday night and never came back. And there's a couple who are supposedly his power of attorneys in Janesville, and they saw Rhonda walking on Thursday morning, and they said, have you talked to Robert? And she said, no. And they said, well, we called him all last night, and he never answered. And she's like, well, what else are you doing? Because guess what? And he'd been confused. Rhonda finally found him by going to the scanner that puts the police scanner. He got picked up going towards Kenosha, and he was in the Kenosha hospital. So he fell and hit his head. So long story short, Rhonda ended up with his cat, and it actually ended up at Mike's house because she already has 7 cats. So Mike is really happy. He has a cat. The cat's not too happy because the cat's like, what the hell's going on? Robert's still in the ICU, so it looks probably like he's not probably going to be able to go home. And of course, they took his driver's license and everything away from him because he just obviously got confused and didn't know where he was. Anyway, keep Robert and Rhonda in your thoughts.
Good morning. I'm Susan, and I just wanted to again thank everybody for living your word of being inclusive and welcoming. And I wanted to let you know we did get signatures, thanks to all of you, to get those school board members on the ballot, and they'll be coming to talk to us. And what's interesting about that is it's an opportunity for us to be inclusive. And hopefully the public will come, and people will invite their neighbors and their friends. The one thing that shocked me about coming to this church, or this congregation, is that it wasn't packed. I know there's a lot of people who feel like I feel and need a place to feel safe to vent and believe what I believe. So it's an opportunity that we can just love on everybody who walks through the door on February 2nd. Well, every weekend. So thank you.
Good morning. There it is. I knew there was a lot of life in here. My name is Fee, and I have joy in my heart this morning. I was given today, I have 24 hours to show myself and everybody else that they're beautiful, loved, and worthy as they are. And so do you. So have at it.
My name's Molly, and my dad. Okay, hi Zoe. My dad went to Greece a few weeks ago, and he wasn't here for my oral surgery and everything else, so I was a little sad about that. But he came back last night, but I was in the car for 4 hours waiting for him because he was in Chicago. So that one? Okay. I want to put, oh fine, you get to put it in. But he got me this cool shirt, so I'm happy about that. And I really missed him. So, I've got another rock. I get to put this one in. Okay, now. Is that one pizza seed? Oh.
And now, I'll do it this way. Now place one last stone in the water for all our joys and sorrows that have been left unspoken as we sing Walking with You.
Walking with you, walking with you is our prayer.
I think I pressed the wrong button. Now it's time for the offering. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many, a community of memory and hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Our plate is now to be shared with SOPHIA. Good morning. I'm Reverend Denise Cawley. My pronouns are she and hers. I have two readings to start us off today from Reverend Dr. Howard Thurman. The first one's called Magic All Around Us. I seek new levels of awareness in the meaning of the commonplace. It is easy for me to take things for granted and to deal with them without sensitiveness. Have you noticed the color in the sky? Have you looked at the shape and place of the tree? What about the light in the eyes of your friend when they smile? The gracious manner that your child has in meeting people at the door, in moving insight and power of the words of the hymn, the music of which you enjoy, the renewal of mind and body after a night of restful sleep, the way the cut in your finger healed, leaving scarcely a trace of the opening. The spontaneous response which overcomes you when you are face to face with some poignant human need. The times when deep within your heart you whisper a thank you to life, or to God, or to love, or as you may say, the fates. There is magic all around us, in rocks and trees, and in the minds of men, I would say of people. Deep hidden springs of magic. He who strikes the rock aright may find them when they will. I seek new levels of awareness of the meaning of the commonplace. When Reverend Dr. Howard wrote, it was the tradition to always use masculine pronouns and things. And then once he was hired to teach at a women's college, and Mrs. Thurman employed him to please consider other pronouns, which was not the fashion of the time. So we have to translate. What is mysticism? Because he, Howard Thurman, was probably thought the word superfluous and did not want us to have a vision of mysticism to occlude anyone's path. He rarely described his own mystical experiences in any detail, preferring to help others center down and find their own paths to God. Now imagine this in the 30s. It wasn't the fashion to have multi-faith churches, although he built them. One exception is his poetic account of a hilltop epiphany from 1939. As often was the case with Thurman, a response to nature deepened his spiritual impulses. And he writes, I journeyed to a hilltop at the close of day.
Darkness stole upon the valley beneath as I sleep on a tired brow. Silence pursued me all the day. Won at last, exhausted, I lay at his feet. No sense of senses, time, space, all awarenesses of self spread out till I and all around me run together in one expansive, streaming, liquid quiet. Suddenly, with a start, time began. The heavy cares of the years seemed lighter now. God so near, I was radiant with holy light. Now, when I was growing up, my mom was considered cool because she had a gay friend. You should laugh. She's watching on YouTube now. Hi, Mom. My dad was good because he was friendly to black people at the auto parts store or the grocery store. At home, they both still struggled with the times, their culture, and their implicit bias. Like most people in my community, they would join in jokes about people who were gay or black, and yet they were also the kind of people who were liberal and would come to the defense of people unlike themselves. Juxtaposition. Some of you may have been cooler than them. Maybe you were out protesting or getting arrested. Perhaps you protested Vietnam or against the nuclear war. Maybe you've attended other demonstrations or boycotted a company. I often asked my parents, where were you during the 60s and 70s? Why don't you have these stories of Woodstock and other places to tell me about? My mom was probably doing someone's hair into an updo, and my dad was probably having a beer and working on a car. Perhaps they were just trying to make it in life. I think we all know what that's like. I would not say my parents were woke in their day. They were more like woke adjacent. Woke meaning spiritual and intellectual enlightenment, like waking up from a deep sleep, of going along with how things are around me, to now waking up from that deep sleep that I must act on. When I would say to my parents, where were you? I was really saying, why were you not the kind of parents I would fantasize I might come from? And why are you not as cool or woke as I think I am, full of myself, or strive to be? When you think back to when you started to be cool or hip or an activist, or maybe you're still working at it like the rest of us, what were the issues that defined you? What were the markers of language that indicated you had done your homework or you were on the journey? What took you from being a reader about something to acting on the knowledge? Think about that for a second. I know for me, one of those first signs was defending queer people before I knew I was one. Reverend Howard Thurman became one of America's greatest spiritual teachers, although many people don't know his name. A crusader for peace and unity among all people. His powerful words inspired people to work together to achieve equality, to end human suffering. Many people know the student that he trained over much of his lifetime, Martin Luther King. But to understand King, we must understand many of the ideas that King made famous. He learned from Thurman. Many of those ideas Thurman learned from Gandhi. It was Thurman's famous book, Jesus and the Disinherited, that King wore out copies of, always carrying with him when he was arrested. It was Thurman who brought King to Gandhi in India. We might have said Thurman was woke long before King. Thurman, the late great philosopher, theologian, teacher, and civil rights leader, he was the minister to the ministers we know as the parents of the civil rights movement. He was reading philosophers from all over the world and throughout time before seminaries were encouraging him or others to do so. He became a mystic by taking in the knowledge, feeling it until he was one with the concepts to the point there was no beginning and no end. He instructs us to feel it. Now, this week is going to be hard for many of us, and many of the weeks to come and the years to come. And maybe we feel they have already been hard, and we can't imagine how much worse it might get. And normally, my message is do. But this week, I want you to think about being in community and feeling these messages. Unitarians and Universalists have been standing up for those who are marginalized since Christians began grappling with the Trinity. It was right for us to get called heretics in the 3rd century when we believed God was love. You can see why the new UU values center love. You can see why it was right for us to stand up for women in the witch trials. You can see how we've made mistakes, but we keep working at it. We have always debated issues and methods. That's kind of the warning to UUs, is rather than spending all our time on the debate, to feel and to do instead. At many churches, some struggle with how should we be doing more for justice? And others may feel left behind because they don't know as much or may not be at the same place in their coolness or wokeness. This week I say to you, be like Thurman, go deeper, meditate on it. Become one with those issues to help you bring along others along the path. Invite others to go deeper with you and go deeper into your own spirituality. Ask your meditations to guide you. Thurman used nature over and over and over, but he also used hymns and art. He did these things both alone and in community because we are on this journey together. Everyone can't do everything. We all have different talents, and for some of you, you can be supportive just by listening to someone explain their passion. Some want to be on the front lines. Some of us can be supportive by stepping aside or bringing soup and letting others take on issues we may not understand, and that's okay. It opens up time for you to share your talent elsewhere. Not every issue can be given all the same attention. It was Howard Thurman who said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go and do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Likewise, we cannot stay where we are. We can't stay where we first were when we first started to open up our mind to new possibilities. Don't be like someone who just reads Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility or the great works of W.E. Du Bois or the Malcolm X biography. Maybe you were the person who led the bake sale to bring Audre Lorde to town with her sister outsider. Now be the one who mentors people at the local shelter or in the reading program. Thurman asks us, maybe you are the one who gives out copies of A is for Activists at every baby shower you go to. Then you have extra copies for the guests, too. Maybe you fly the Black Lives Matter flag and you go and pass out water at the next rally. Don't claim an identity based on who you were back when you first watched Roots or had Kurt Vonnegut on your nightstand next to Silent Spring by Rachel Carlson. Don't just be that person. Now go into the woods to consider your next step in your spiritual evolution. I first learned about Howard Thurman when I went to a conference on him probably over 8 or 10 years ago in Madison. And on this day, in his day, Thurman was teaching activists and theological students and politicians while he wrote more than 20 books. He was the minister. He was the minister to Martin Luther King and Jesse Jackson. We all have a different role in the movement. Now, if you claim humanism, or you claim paganism, or you claim atheism or agnosticism, you might ask yourself, what the heck can I learn from a Christian mystic? I walked around here before service and read all the little descriptions of your quilts that were based on the principles, and there were lots of references to other kinds of thought and being. Be open to those other kinds of thought. There are things to learn from a Christian mystic. And when you read Thurman's work, he did not write about God more so. He writes about the world in his observations. And he attributes the wonders of nature and the way people act into a gratitude for the holy mystery. He writes, as a child, I was accustomed to spending many hours alone in my rowboat, fishing along the river, when there was no sound save the little waves lapping against the boat. There were times when it seemed as if the earth and the river and the sky and I were one beat of the same pulse. There would come a moment when beyond the single pulse beat, there was a sense of presence, which seemed to always speak to me. My response to the sense of presence always had the quality of a personal communication. There was no voice. There was no image. There was no vision. There was God. Thurman did this, his seeking of truth and his observations in the great outdoors. That's what I like to do too. Maybe some of you do. Do you? Couple hands. You want to try it again? I like interactive services. I've been blessed to be pre-invited to preach to you a few more times this year, so get ready.
No, we won't go.
All right. The word mysticism might conjure up thoughts of New Age spirituality. I was walking around a store in Cedarburg the other day, and there were like a million little like turtles and owls and, like mushrooms and like all these little symbols that people could kind of devote themselves to. And I thought to myself, this exists because they don't have church. We have all these gift stores of all these little things that like are supposed to be our thing. And it's cool that they're your thing, but go deeper than just the picture of the thing that you like. Go deeper. I digress. The word mysticism might conjure up those thoughts of that New Age spirituality, and one person said to me they thought the word mysticism meant having hallucinations or some combination of angels and incense. And my fiance, the Reverend Matt Aspen, who is the minister at Lake Country UU, said to me, "It really sounds like someone tripping." Reverend Matt. In fact, what it means is to be showing up for quiet. Show up for listening to the silence. For Thurman, it meant being with his favorite oak tree, or fishing, or watching the waves. And in that space, you may receive wisdom. You might show up and nothing will happen. That's okay. You might meet the divine or God or the great mystery. Nothing or the great mystery. All are possible. Howard Thurman did not whoop or holler or resort to any such preaching styles in order to reach his congregation. He was able to completely reframe the entrenched set of beliefs within his church, and he was able to create a movement that included everyone. He drew on Quakerism, Hinduism, paganism, and more, and built a truly interracial church. He had one out in San Francisco, he had one he built in DC, he did it in Boston. Thurman studied with Quaker mystic and leader of the Pacifist Interracial Fellowship of Reconciliation, Rufus Jones. And that began his journey toward a philosophy that had stressed the activism rooted in faith, guided by spirit, and maintained in peace. He suggested that a technique of relaxation might break this cycle. Thurman was very active with the YMCA, and in 1936, he and his wife were invited to be part of a delegation that traveled to South Asia and India, and it was there that he got to study with Gandhi. It was Gandhi who taught Thurman about nonviolent protest. King didn't invent that. When Thurman came back and taught that technique and wrote about it, he was never the one out leading the protest. He didn't have the megaphone. In fact, he was in the background supporting the protesters, supporting the movement. Thurman said Gandhi expressed his wish that the message of nonviolence would be sent to the world by African Americans. Not only did Thurman go on to build in interracial church gatherings, it was Thurman who regularly advised the leaders of organizations, including Martin Luther King, Pauli Murray, if you don't know who she is, look her up, Vernon Jordan, James Farmer, Whitney Young, Jesse Jackson, Malcolm X, and Bayard Rustin. All great names to study. Thurman also offers an explanation of the path toward discovering the indivisible in the interdependent web that we UUs profess to believe in, but often keep ourselves disconnected from due to our resistance of the old beliefs of God, or because we read books more than we act on their messages. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, and go and do that, because that's what the world needs. People who come alive. Thurman wrote a new interpretation of the Gospels in the New Testament that was laid out the foundation of the nonviolence movement in 1949. And that book became the primer for the leaders that we know their names. The message was miracles happen not by something happening to you. Instead, you can become empowered to survive in the face of oppression by changing from within. It was about experiencing a miracle because you changed your own mind. Jesus in the Disinherited is one of his most famous books, and he writes, "A love rooted in the deep river of faith would help oppressed people overcome persecution. It may twist and turn and fall back on itself and start again. Stumble over an infinite series of hindering rocks, but last the river must call to the sea." 15 years earlier, when Thurman led that first trip for black activists to meet Gandhi, Gandhi taught them that instead of seeing Christianity as a religion used by whites to keep black people in their places, with images of Christ in a land of milk and honey and the great beyond, Hindu principles offered Indians a basis for nonviolent oppression to British power, to British colonialism. And Gandhi asked if Christianity had a similar power to overcome racism. And that message became the backbone for Thurman's message. Thurman didn't see a divided movement like the Transcendentalists versus the Unitarians. He saw it as a movement together. What did he get from Gandhi to help fuel that movement? He writes, "Eventually I discovered that the oak tree and I had a unique relationship. I could sit my back against the trunk and feel the same peace that would come to me in my bed at night. I could reach down in the quiet places of my spirit, take out my bruises and my joys, and unfold them and talk about them. I could talk aloud to the oak tree and know I was understood. It too was part of my reality, like the woods, the night, the pounding surf, my earliest companions giving me space." Now, just what Unitarians love about paganism and religious naturalism and even Henry David Thoreau, Thurman was doing. Mystical experience of unity, the profoundly moving, if fleeting, creative encounter with the realization that all of life is one, filled with a sense of the other. Mysticism is the response of the individual to a personal encounter with God or within his own spirit. The life of the mystic is worked out in the world of men and things. Each must learn, so the mystic thinks, to stand up to his own right and live. The mystic knows they cannot escape the fundamental problem of ethics as it works itself out in time and space and relationships. Discipline of some sort becomes necessary and inevitable. Affirmation mystics are concerned with working out the social frame of reference and the realism of their sense of the other. Thurman approached building diverse churches by letting go of the old beliefs of God as the controller, and instead approached God with love, using mysticism to bring new eyes and talents together. He writes, "The individual makes their own way to the temple of quiet within their own spirit and the activity of their spirit within its walls. It is the total process of quieting down. Perhaps as important as the prayer itself is the readying of the spirit for the experience. I spent long hours of quiet," he writes, "in the empty chapel, listening to the silence and gazing at the rose window at sunset, until slowly it was clear to me what I would have to do." He was so inspired, the order of the service was completely redesigned. Music and poetry and art and liturgical dance and readings added. Sunday morning service at Rankin Chapel became a watering place for a wide range of worshipers, not only from the university community, but also from the District of Columbia, despite the fact that the district at the time was segregated racially. The Sunday chapel service provided a time and place where race, sex, culture, material belongings, and earlier religious orientation became undifferentiated in the presence of God. Thurman did not design services that ended at exactly the 60-minute mark, but instead provided sketches of time for meditation, a quiet time for prayers generated in silence, using Old and New Testament passages. He writes, "I began to read aloud, the tones of the organ weaving in and out of the muted accompaniment. There were periods of silence here and there to allow inspiration of the words to hold the full sway. When the service was over, I left the pulpit, but the audience remained in their seats in total silence for several minutes. If any of you, have felt disconnected, discouraged by the direction of your life or this world or current events, try a mystical approach. The mystic's concern with the imperative social action is not merely to improve the condition of society. It is not merely to feed the hungry, not merely to revive human suffering and to eliminate human misery. But this is not all. The basic consideration has to do with removal of all that prevents God or nature or love from coming into the life of the individual. Whatever blocks us is what calls us to action. Because remember, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go and do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Amen.
Now please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
We would be one, as now we join in singing our hymn of love, to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what's in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
In honor of tomorrow being Martin Luther King Day, so our minds can focus on that event as opposed to others, I'm going to read the last part of his I Have a Dream. And if America is to be a great nation, this must come true. So let freedom ring from every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black and white, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. And now I will extinguish this flame. But not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather again. And now, please, sometimes my services, or the services I facilitate, run a little short. This might run a little long. And now, please welcome Jacqueline Foley from SOPHIA.
It's a good thing I wore heels today because I am very short. My computer takes a second to load, so just give me a minute. All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today, speaking with all of you. It's truly a joy to see some familiar faces in the congregation, and equally exciting to see many new ones. First, I want to say thank you for having me. My name is Jacqueline Foley, and I am the new organizer for SOPHIA. I joined this incredible organization in November, so I'm still fairly new. But I've already been inspired by the passion and dedication of the people I've had the privilege to meet and work with. So a little bit about me is I'm a proud Carroll University alumni where I earned my bachelor's degree in communications with a minor in political science. After college, my husband joined the Marine Corps, which took us on a new adventure all the way to California where he was stationed. Recently, we decided it was time to come back to the Midwest and put roots down, and now we call Oconomowoc our home. We also have a 1-year-old son who, despite his young age, is already an excellent little organizer in the making. He often comes along to meetings with me, so don't be surprised if you meet him one of these days. However, today he's at home spending some quality time with Dad. I am truly thrilled to be a part of SOPHIA. Throughout my life, I've been passionate about advocating for causes that matter, from animal rights to children's education, and now the critical work of addressing social justice issues. Joining SOPHIA has given me an incredible opportunity to channel the passion into meaningful action and work alongside others who are just as committed to making a difference. So now I know many of you are already familiar with SOPHIA, especially since you guys are an affiliate organization of us. But I wanted to take a moment to share a little bit about who we are for those who might not know or are new. SOPHIA stands for Stewards of Prophetic, Hopeful, Intentional Action. I know it's a mouthful. We are a grassroots organization that is part of the larger Wisdom Network, which works across Wisconsin to promote social justice and address systematic injustices. Our mission is rooted in the belief that meaningful change happens when people come together, united by shared values and a commitment to justice. What I think makes SOPHIA unique is that we are a faith-based organization. We unite people from diverse faith communities to inspire action and work together toward a common goal: creating just, equitable, and compassionate communities for all. SOPHIA's work is carried out through several task forces, which focus on addressing different areas of social justice. So first, we have the Housing Task Force, which is dedicated to finding housing solutions. This group works tirelessly to ensure that everyone in our community has access to safe, affordable housing. It's a basic necessity that so many still struggle with today. We also have the Criminal Justice Task Force, which advocate for reforms to ensure fair treatment within the criminal justice systems. This task force has achieved some incredible successes. For example, they played a key role in shutting down the Huber facility in Waukesha and transitioning all those individuals who were in the Huber facility to electric monitoring. I'm also excited to share that the Immigration Task Force is being reorganized. Immigration issues are very important, especially given the times we are living in. And we had a fantastic turnout last week of people who are invested and passionate about reigniting this important work. This is a great opportunity to make an impact in an area that touches so many lives. In addition to our task forces, SOPHIA also has 2 committees that play crucial roles in our work. The first is our Racial Equity Committee. While this committee is currently on pause as we work through a few logistics, we're hopeful it will get back together soon. This committee is deeply important to our mission as it focuses on addressing systematic racial inequalities and ensuring that all voices are heard in our community. The second is our Religious Leaders Caucus. We call it RLC for short, which we would love to see grow. This caucus brings together faith leaders from across the community to collaborate on important social justice issues. One of their recent successes was putting on a lead water awareness series this past fall, which helps shine a light on the urgent need to address the impact of lead in our water systems. If these task force or committees spark your interest, SOPHIA would love to have you join us. Whether you're interested in reigniting the Racial Equity Committee or bringing your voice to the Immigration Task Force, there's a place for you at SOPHIA. Don't hesitate to find me after at coffee. I'd be happy to share more ways you can get involved. One of the things that makes SOPHIA so impactful is the partnerships we have with our affiliates, like you guys. There are so many meaningful ways that you can help SOPHIA continue tackling social justice issues. First, your presence matters. Simply attending our events, task force meetings, or community actions make a huge difference. Showing up sends a powerful message of solidarity and helps amplify our collective voices. Or if you're interested in taking on a leadership role, we're always looking for dedicated individuals to join our SOPHIA's board. Looking ahead to 2025, there are a couple exciting events that I want to make sure you all have on your radar. First, we have Madison Action Day. That is going to be held on April 10th. This is an important day where people from all over Wisconsin gather in Madison to advocate for social justice, meet with lawmakers, and push for legislative change. We would love to have as many of you join us as possible. Next, don't miss our annual community breakfast on May 3rd at 9:30 a.m. at La Casa Esperanza. This event is a chance to come together, celebrate the work we've accomplished, and hear from a key speaker. It's always an uplifting and motivating event, and we would love for you to be there, whether you're a long-term supporter or new to SOPHIA's work. We also have the SOPHIA Yearbook in the works for 2025. This will be a special collection of stories, highlights, and photos from our events and accomplishments. I have with me the 2024 yearbook if anyone would like to take a look at it. One thing we are looking for help with is having individuals help us gather companies and organizations to purchase ads for the yearbook. Even if it's one company you have a connection with that you think would like to purchase an ad, that's one more than we had yesterday. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the ads as well. I hope I have given everyone a good feel of who I am, what SOPHIA is working on right now, and what we need help with. With that being said, I think I've spoken enough for today. But lastly, I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate coming and speaking with you. It was a pleasure.
And talking with Jacqueline downstairs for coffee in the fellowship hall. Hi. And listen, if you would please, to Alex's postlude as we are dismissed. Thank you.
I'm going to add on to that. I know this isn't listed as a hymn in the order of service, but feel free to sing along. It's a protest song, so it doesn't feel right singing it by myself. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in.